Hello, YouTube. The first time I saw Season 8, Episode 4 of Game of Thrones, this whole thing with Euron's ambush on Dany and her fleet and her dragons, it destroyed the whole episode for me. I think it is extremely poorly written with so many plot holes. Dany's on a dragon high up in the sky, and she don't see an entire fleet that is hidden behind like a few small islands. And yes, even if one of the dragons is damaged and therefore not as maneuverable as it usually is, there are still two relatively small targets flying up high in the sky, and Euron's scorpions seem to be like high precision modern anti-aircraft guns or something, because they have their rate of fire and the precision is insane. And then they start to shoot Dany's fleet to bits with a power that, not even cannons from like the 1800s would have done that massive amount of damage on a fleet that quickly. That scene sucks. That whole thing sucks. Okay? End of story. But when I watched this episode a second time yesterday with a friend of mine, and I realized that except from that part, there were actually a lot of parts that I really enjoyed, that I really liked. So, with all the negativity floating around the internet about the latest Game of Thrones season, I wanted to share some things I really liked about that episode. First of all, the funeral scene in the beginning. It is a really nice wrap-up of this whole Night King storyline. We see how different characters have suffered serious losses. We see Sansa putting a Stark pin on Theon, which really is a nice way of ending his storyline. Like, his whole life he felt he was neither good enough to be a Greyjoy nor good enough to be a Stark. And in his death, Sansa says, you can be both. You are both a worthy Greyjoy and a worthy Stark. Jon gives a really nice speech where he talks about how they have put aside their differences and come together to fight this common threat. And the way he's formulating his speech is also, in my mind, a very nice wrap-up of the Night's Watch storyline. From what I understand, the Night's Watch is by this point exterminated. Jon and Sam are the only ones still alive, and they have both in effect left the watch. But I think all that it's made really nice. It's really sets a good mood for what is to come. And the scene after that, the feast in Winterfell, it is also, I feel, a really nice scene. It's we get the feeling of the tension between Daenerys and Sansa, and we see how Dany is quite upset when when you see how popular Jon is. We also see Daenerys make Gendry Lord of Storm's End. That was something I saw coming, I expected, because we have seen so many times before in the series how bastards can be made legitimate children by kings or queens. So making Gendry a Baratheon and making him Lord of Storm's End make perfect sense for Dany. She needs new loyal lords around her coming forward. Now, another thing I felt was really nice was the affair between Jaime and Brienne. Because we have seen these two characters be really influential, really important for each other for a lot of seasons now, and we have, or at least I have felt like something is happening. There is a tension there. Bronn have several times also hinted at, do you think they are fucking? And it's made clear that this is Brienne's first time with a man ever, and it's Jaime's first time with anyone else than Cersei. In all this incestuous stuff, he have truly been like faithful and I guess honorable. He teases Catelyn Stark in earlier season that, you know what, I've only been with Cersei. I've been more honorable than your noble Ned Stark who made a bastard. We know now that that wasn't true, but anyway. And this really beautiful scene and their love for each other, it makes it so dramatic when Jaime decides that no, I got to go down to King's Landing and try to save my sister, save the love of my life. It becomes really, really dramatic because I think because we have Jaime, he have a choice on going forward, making a new better life with Brienne, or going back to his earlier life, his earlier goals, to the love of his life and the destruction of his life, his sister Cersei, and he chooses the latter. He chooses to ride south. There is a similar thing going on with Gendry and Arya. Gendry wants Arya to marry her. No, to marry him. But Arya don't want to, and we see her leave the Winterfell with the Hound to go and kill Cersei. So that's also that she chooses the past. She chooses revenge instead of a future with someone she loves. So that's both of those scenes are interesting, I think. Now, final thing I like is the whole affair with Jon's true identity, that he's actually a Targaryen. And he tells Dany, Sam and Bran make it realize what happened, and tells Jon, and he tells Dany, and she begs him not to tell anyone. But he feels compelled by honor or something like that to tell his family, that's Arya and Sansa, except for Bran. And then Sansa tell it forward to Tyrion, and Tyrion tells it to Varys, and this leads to intrigue and scheming. I think this is interesting because it ties into a theme throughout the whole show about how honor, honesty, pursuing of true love, and similar things we generally view as positive can have terrible consequences. We now know that the whole rebellion against Robert's rebellion was based on Aegon and Lyanna. Was it Rhaegar? Rhaegar, I think. Okay, sorry if I'm confused. But they loved each other and they wanted to pursue their true love instead of a political marriage. And that led to a big war. We see Ned Stark in season 1 and end of season 1. He feels that he have to warn Cersei about when he have found out that her children are bastards. Because he don't want her killed. He feel that is the honorable thing to do, and it again costs him his life. It costs him the life of several family members and men following him, and in then starts another war. Robb Stark, pursuing true love, setting aside a Frey girl, leads to a massacre of his family. And man, Tyrion asked Jon not long ago, when it came to the negotiations between them and Cersei, that have you ever considered to learn how to lie, even a little bit? So I feel this have been a theme through the entire show, and also in the books, that good things, good principles like honesty, honor, pursuing true love, they can have a horrible price. And of course we know, I will soon make a video talking about episode 5, but those of you who have seen it, and me too, hashtag me too, no, we know that this will have really terrible consequences. Bye.